Good morning, everybody, from Thessaloniki, Greece. It is around 9:15 in the morning, and we are going to make our way to the Hagia Sophia Church of Thessaloniki, the Saint Sophia Church of Thessaloniki. Right now, I'm close to the main square, Aristotelos Square. The port is behind me. The city now is also behind me. So let's take a walk and make our way to the Byzantine Church of Saint Sophia of Thessaloniki. The actual church dates back to around the 8th century, but there's been a church at that spot where we're going to since the 3rd century AD. And so I've kind of got an idea where the church is at, but I hope I don't get lost. Anyway, in today's video, we are going to talk about news because that is what we're here to talk about. And we are going to discuss Ursula von der Crazy's trip to Kiev yesterday. She made, to me, it was a surprise trip, but I don't know, maybe it was planned. But she was in Kiev yesterday talking about Ukraine's EU aspirations. And we will also talk about what's going on in Bulgaria. Big news coming out of Bulgaria. And we will talk about what else? The Asian NATO and the Shangri-La summit that is taking place, where Lloyd Austin was speaking, the U.S. Defense Secretary. China came out with some very strong words towards the United States and what's going on in Taiwan. And Elensky also made a guest appearance there via Zoom video to speak to the conference attendees. But first, before we get into what's going on with the Ukraine and its EU aspirations, let's do a quick roundup as to some more economic news coming out of Europe. Oh, that's a nice church. One sec. So we have news coming out of Denmark saying that inflation has hit a 40-year high. Should we go in? Let's go in real quick. We'll just do a quick go around of this small church. All right, I was talking about Denmark. Denmark, 40-year inflation high. The Netherlands, the highest gas prices all time highest gas prices. And I know there'll be the people saying, well, in Europe, they don't really drive around a lot. Everyone's walking, so no big deal with high gas prices. Europe will be okay. Yeah, but diesel trucks, transportation, keep an eye out for diesel. When all of those transportation costs go up, everything goes up. And then you had Habeck, the green, what is he, like the deputy like chancellor, and he's like the energy minister. He's the Green Party leader along with Annalena Baerbock, and those two are conspiring to deindustrialize Germany under the ruse that it's all Putin's fault. They know what they're doing anyway. Habeck came out with a speech yesterday or 2 days ago, and he warned Germans of a difficult autumn and a tough winter. Quote, "As for the support of the people who need it, I clearly indicated what is ahead of us and what is already partially a reality. We are facing a very difficult autumn and a very tough winter." This is what he told Germans while he was giving a speech on Friday in Berlin. And yeah, you know, these people are incredible, aren't they? These ideologues, these Green New Deal ideologues. It's like, you know, we've wrecked the economy. Everyone's going to pay a lot more for everything and suffer. And we're going to warn you about it as well. we're going to warn you about it. So we wrecked it. We destroyed it. We're going to push Germany through a terribly painful and destructive deindustrialization and turn Germany into a backwater. And we're going to warn you about it as well. So it's going to be a tough autumn and a tough winter because we made it tough, and we're just letting everybody know. So yeah, here's right here in front of us is the Hagia Sophia, the Saint Sophia of Thessaloniki. It's actually modeled after the Hagia Sophia in Turkey. So this is, you know, Thessaloniki is like one thing I'm understanding about this city. If you love Byzantine history, and if you love the history of Alexander the Great as well, then this is the city for you. This is the city for you. Everywhere you turn, there's some history, some remnants of the Byzantine Empire or of Alexander the Great or something like that, Aristotle, or it's just pretty amazing. So that's what's going on there. A quick roundup of some inflation news. And let's talk, before we go into the church, let's talk about the EU and Ursula von der Leyen. You can hear the chants. Ursula von der Leyen and her trip to Kiev. I'm going to sit down over there as I read this, as I go through this story. So Ursula von der Leyen made her way to Kiev, and you know what's so great about the liturgy and the music is I can actually have this music in the video, and YouTube isn't going to give me a copyright strike. This music is God's music. This is above YouTube's rules. Anyway, let's talk about Ursula's visit to Kiev and her sit down with Elensky. So basically, the EU is going to, from what I understand, they haven't announced it yet, but they're going to make Ukraine into a candidate country. This is my understanding. It hasn't been voted on, but I think it'll go through. What does that mean? It pretty much means that Ukraine, along with, let me see some candidate countries. Turkey is a candidate country, and it's been like that for 30 years or so. Serbia is a candidate country. I believe North Macedonia is a candidate country. It basically means that, you know, the EU, yeah, it would be nice to have you in the European Union, but, you know, it's not a done deal, and it's going to probably take 20, 30 years if it ever does happen. And of course, with Ukraine, the big question is Ukraine going to even be around in 6 months, let alone 20 years? And what exactly is that Ukraine going to be? The way things are looking right now, given the progress of the Russian military, it looks like Ukraine will, at a very minimum, be a landlocked country in Europe, and at the very best case scenario, it'll be a country that has lost 25-30% of its territory, and at a minimum will be a neutral country with a very large Russian influence on the government and on the administration. I don't think the Russians will go for anything less than that as far as a ceasefire deal is concerned with Ukraine. But anyway, Ursula was in Kiev. She met with Zelensky. She made some statements here, and let me get to some of her statements that she made with regards to Ukraine and its EU aspirations. And, I understand why Ursula goes to Kiev to try to give a positive spin to what's going on, because things are looking very bad right now for the Elensky regime and for the EU and for the collective West and the United States, with inflation and an economic catastrophe and all of these things. So the EU, NATO, they need some wins. They need Finland and Sweden in NATO so that they can say it's a victory. They need some news about Ukraine getting into the EU so they could chalk it up to some sort of a victory. But even Ursula's statements, I have to be honest, were pretty what's the word that we're pretty insignificant with regards to Ukraine and the EU. They were pretty boilerplate, like standard stuff, standard statements that she was issuing. So this is what she said: "You have done a lot in strengthening the rule of law, but there still needs to be reforms implemented to fight corruption, for example, or to modernize this well-functioning administration to help attract investors." Listen to that, to help attract investors. What investors are going to go into Ukraine the next 6 months to a year? Anyway, she keeps on going. "Of course, Ukraine was already on a good track before the horrible and atrocious invasion of Russia," she said, hailing the enormous efforts and determination of Ukraine in its bid to join the bloc. Van der Leyen added that Ukraine has a solid political system, robust and well-anchored institutions, and functioning administration on all levels. She said it has that Ukraine is also a well-functioning democracy and all of these, just standard stuff. That's my point. All her rhetoric when she was giving like this press conference with Elensky in Kiev was all just standard. You have a good democracy and human rights and the rule of law, but you're going to have to go through reforms, and we're going to help you and stand by your side. She did talk about the fact that before the special military operation, Elensky had banned all political opposition. He was banning the Russian language. He banned Russian media. This is before the special military operation. So, some human rights and some well-functioning democracy there. But Van der Leyen just forgot all about that stuff. And I want to bring the point home that this was before the conflict, that the Elensky regime was committing all these human rights abuses towards Russians and Russian speakers and Ukrainian citizens living in the East, not to mention the terrible war that was waged on the east of the country for the last 8 years, killing around 15,000 civilians. For Ursula von der Leyen, those lives don't matter. Those are just not important. Anyway, she pretty much said, she hinted at the fact that she's going to take this application that Elensky had prepared to get into the EU, and she's going to take it back to the 27 member countries, and they're going to vote on it. And I imagine even people like Macron and Rutte, who are against Ukraine getting into the EU. I believe Denmark and Croatia are also two countries that are against Ukraine's EU accession. I imagine they're going to vote yes for the candidacy so they can give some sort of win to Elensky and some sort of win to Europe and to NATO. You know, they'll come up with the same standard statements. Putin's military operation in Ukraine has failed because now Ukraine is going to be a candidate country, and NATO is also getting bigger with Finland and Sweden, and we're more stronger and more united than ever. So Putin's goals have failed. He hasn't broken apart the European Union or NATO. He's actually strengthened it. And those are going to be the talking points that are handed to the BBC and Sky News and all of these puppet shill media organizations. But, you know, don't buy the you know what. I'm not going to say the word because of where I am, but it's all lies. Just because Ukraine is going to be a candidate country, and I think they'll get the candidate country status, it doesn't really mean much, to be quite honest. Not much at all. Like I said, Turkey, Serbia. Turkey's been a candidate country for 30 years, so. And I don't even think Turkey wants to get into the European Union anymore. Beautiful architecture, huh? Yeah, I don't think Turkey has any interest in getting into the EU. I think getting into the EU is like more of a punishment than a blessing at this point in time. But Ursula did talk about reconstruction. She's really keen on reconstruction. She said that the EU is definitely going to help reconstruct Ukraine. Isn't that interesting? And she said 300 billion is going to be allocated to the reconstruction of Ukraine. And, you know what that means, everybody. Corruption. That's why she wants that reconstruction so bad. That's why they're going to give them the candidacy status as well. It's going to be a nice excuse to pour in 300 billion to reconstruction, which I think we all understand that it's going to be just a massive, massive theft that's going to take place under the guise of reconstructing the country. So let's move on to Bulgaria, because this is an interesting story that isn't making much news, but I'm going to talk about it here because we talked about Estonia and how that coalition government collapsed and fell apart. And we now have another coalition government, which looks like it's falling apart. And that is the government of Bulgaria. And Bulgaria's ruling coalition was at a breaking point on Wednesday after and this is a strange party name, after There's Such a People party announced that it is leaving the cabinet, although Prime Minister Kirill Petkov, co-leader of the We Continue the Change party, declared that he's ready to continue governing with a minority administration. The surprise move was announced by There's Such a People party leader, Slavi Trifonov, who cited Petkov's policy as the main reason for the decision to quit the government, which could tip Bulgaria into a new political crisis. Trifonov is critical of Petkov's alleged plans to initiate the lifting of Bulgaria's veto of North Macedonia's EU accession talks, put in place by the previous Boyko Borisov-led cabinet in 2020 over historical disputes between the two countries. We don't have any place in this coalition for two reasons: North Macedonia and the fact that there's no money left in the country, Trifonov said in a video message on his Facebook page. The Prime Minister is leading a political line of his own, different from the one in the coalition agreement. So very interesting statement. No money in the government. And the fact that Bulgaria may fold to the EU's wishes and bring North Macedonia into the European Union. No money in the government. Maybe Bulgaria should not have sent all of their money and weapons to Ukraine. I think that would have been a smart move, given the fact that there's no money in the coffers. But the North Macedonia issue, yeah, it's a big issue. Olaf Scholz was making a trip to Kosovo, North Macedonia, and Serbia, and it was all about expanding the EU. He leveled threats at Serbia, and he said, "Look, Serbia, either you start sanctioning Russia, or I am going to to bring Kosovo into the European Union. That was pretty much the threats that he leveled against Serbia. And I'm sure that Olaf Scholz is also going to push North Macedonia getting into the European Union, because it's all about expansion. And Bulgaria, as well as Greece, I'm here in Macedonia. This is where I am right now, Thessaloniki, and we've had our issues with North Macedonia, and Bulgaria has issues with North Macedonia. So, the fact that the Petkov government is actually looking to fold to the EU's wishes to expand the Union is leading to a coalition breakdown. But I imagine it's the sanctions and Russia as well, and the economic situation. All of these things together are leading to a possible political crisis in Bulgaria. People who are watching this in Bulgaria, let me know what the situation is at the moment, and maybe I'll do a follow-up to what is turning out to be a political crisis in Bulgaria. So Estonia, Bulgaria, the United Kingdom. The Putin regime change is not working out too well, is it, for the European Union? Let's switch gears now to Asia, and let's talk about the Shangri-La summit, because we had Lloyd Austin giving a speech at the Shangri-La summit, and he said some very interesting things. And of course, China is very angered with the United States because the U.S. is inching towards some sort of deal, recognition, something with Taiwan. China senses it, that something is cooking with Taiwan. And the U.S. is about to send, I believe, like 120 million in weapons to Taiwan, and China was just furious with it. I mean, furious. As a matter of fact, I believe the Chinese defense minister, China's defense minister, General Wei Fenghe, told the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Friday that Beijing would fight at all costs to prevent Taiwan from breaking away from the Chinese mainland. His warning comes as the U.S. pursues a multi-million-dollar arms deal with Taiwan amid conflicting messages on the island's status from Washington. Quote, "If anyone dares to split Taiwan from China, the Chinese military has no choice but to fight at all costs and take all necessary measures to crush any attempt by Taiwan separatists to split Taiwan from the motherland," we told Austin. We also said the Chinese military will resolutely safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity. So that is, those are the statements from the Chinese defense minister and the Chinese military spokesman, Wu Qian. Wu Qian said the Chinese military will resolutely safeguard additional sovereignty and territorial integrity. So Lloyd Austin gave a speech at the Shangri-La summit, a keynote address, and Lloyd Austin said that he said, "Let me be clear, speaking about the United States, we do not seek confrontation or conflict, and we do not seek a new Cold War, an Asian NATO, or a region split into hostile blocs." But Austin did say that amid growing coercion from China and its provocative and destabilizing military activity near Taiwan, the U.S. remains focused on maintaining peace, stability, and the status quo across the Taiwan Strait. Maintaining peace, Austin stressed, is not just in Washington's interests, but it's also a matter of international concern. So it's very interesting that Austin says an Asia NATO. Liz Truss, about a month ago, the UK foreign minister talked about an Asia NATO forming. And now you have Lloyd Austin saying, no, we're not planning for an Asia NATO. That's not what we want. When a high-level US official, someone like Austin says, we're not planning for an Asia NATO, you could pretty much take it to the bank that an Asia NATO is coming. That's how I see it. And look at that. Interesting. So those were the statements from Lloyd Austin. And I find it very troubling that he uses a lot of the same rhetoric, even though he says we're not looking for conflict or anything like that with China. He uses the same rhetoric that the collective West was using right before the Ukraine crisis broke out, which was, we're not looking for conflict with Russia, but Russia is aggressive and they're destabilizing the region, and this is an international concern, and we need to protect Ukraine, and NATO is not an aggressive alliance, it's a defensive alliance, and NATO is also going to protect Ukraine, and Ukraine wants to be neutral and they're not aggressive towards Russia. But I mean, you see the same like waffling statements from Austin that he gave with regards to Russia and Ukraine, that he's now giving with regards to China and Taiwan. We don't want any type of troubles in Taiwan, and we don't want a new Cold War or an Asian NATO. But China is being aggressive, and they're being their coercion, what did he say? Their coercive attitude and their aggressive attitude towards Taiwan is troubling, and so we're going to give them more weapons and escalate. So it's obvious that the U.S. is heading towards the same path with Taiwan as they did with Ukraine and Russia. It is obvious, and China realizes this. China understands this, and they're sending warnings now. They are sending warnings early, and they're telling the U.S. back off. But can these neocons and these neoliberals back off? These globalists? They don't have a reverse gear. So anyway, we're going to do a real quick clown world. And since we're at a beautiful church here, this is going to be actually a good clown world. It's actually going to be a positive clown world, if it's confirmed, and I can't confirm it. But there is news out of Kherson that the now Russian-controlled Kherson, that all of the residents in Kherson who had any type of banking debt, it is now going to be erased as they enter the Russian Federation and get their Russian passports. How about that? Now, this is a great move in order to win people over, any people that are sitting on the fence with regards to what's happening. But if this is true, if this is confirmed, then it's a very smart move. And I'll put it into the clown world. Maybe this is like a clown world for the bankers, because the bankers are going to be very upset with this. But this is like a positive clown world. So anyone with debts towards banks in Kherson, it should be forgiven. And it looks like it will be forgiven. How about that? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, everybody. Let's just take a couple of minutes and listen to the liturgy, and I'm going to sign off. Alexander's channel on YouTube, the Duran's channel on YouTube, and the Duran.locals.com. Let me take you in for a quick peek. Like 1 minute.
Όχι στην αγάπη και την αλήθεια, αλλά βασίζεται στην ανοχή των παθών και των προβλημάτων κάθε ανθρώπου. Ναι, πρέπει να σεβόμαστε όλους τους ανθρώπους αδιακρίτως. Ναι, όλοι οι άνθρωποι